Great.
So, hello everyone. Lovely to talk to you. As mentioned, my name's Charlotte Stone. I'm head of exhibitions and galleries at the Natural History Museum. I've been here around 5 years now, and I did a very similar job at the Science Museum in London previous to that. And that's me, Beth.
Hi everyone. Yes, I head up the learning team at the museum. So we are creating and delivering programs, events, activities, developing resources across all of our audiences. So we engage with family audiences, with school groups, with communities and young people. And we do that online, on site and off site too. But very nice to meet you. Charlotte and I work really closely together whenever we're putting a new exhibition or gallery together. We tend to think of those as larger programs of activity, and so yeah, we regularly work together on things like this.
Yes, so we'd love to talk to you today about Our Broken Planet, which is a lot of work for them now, but it was born out of a strategy that was developed by our previous head of public programs, Claire Mattison. The strategy was started in 2020 and has been endorsed by our new director. And really, it set us up to declare a planetary emergency and put us as solutions to that planetary emergency. So we set a vision, a relatively simple one, where we see a future where both people and planet thrive. And the mission was to create advocates for the planet. So the whole of the museum had to galvanize under this mission. How do we create advocates for the planet? And really that question for the engagement team is what led to Our Broken Planet. Next slide, please. So our grand ambition for the overall program was to start a conversation with our museum visitors, our digital visitors, our online visitors in South Kent and online about why and how our relationship with the natural world needs to change. We wanted to do this through exhibition, through digital, and through events. And actually, that's quite unique for the museum, although we do that around exhibitions. To do it to the kind of extent and on that global level was relatively new to the museum. We had this grand ambition that really set us up to have a slightly different voice to a slightly different set of people than we had done before. And Beth will take you through that in a bit more detail in a minute. And really, I was responsible for developing that exhibition. Beth was responsible for those events. And then we also had someone similar working on the digital element. We all came together through a content working group. Next slide, please, Beth. So what were the objectives of Our Broken Planet? These are the big, broad objectives. It was to be a solution for the sustainable future. I'm not sure if you know the Natural History Museum London well, but we are as much a science institute as we are a public engagement and museum institute. So we have around 500-600 scientists working in the field the whole time. And part of the mission and part of that strategy we were talking about was to get NHM science out there, get NHM scientists known, get them known that they are focusing down on the solutions around that emergency planet. So that was something we were going to focus in the galleries. We wanted to be a discussion and a forum for debate and discussion. Again, Beth may touch a bit on this going forward, but actually that was quite new for us to do that in the galleries. We had been doing it in digital form and through online events, but to actually do that in the gallery was quite different for us. We wanted to be experimental. And again, if you've come to the museum, we have actually quite traditional galleries here. So how do we be experimental in a new exhibition talking about the planet? We wanted to engage Gen Z and millennials. I'm not sure if these terms are kind of global terms, but I think they basically talk to a 13 to 34 audience, not typical for exhibitions, that really were already engaged in some degree. We wanted to be global in our thinking. And we wanted to link all of the subject matter that we covered in the exhibition around human and planetary health. So from there, thank you, we began to build an idea of what would this exhibition look like. We took quite a simple formula. We took the science that we do within NHM. We took the scientists and we decided to really personalize that science. We talked about the scientists as much as the science. We represented it with our specimens and our collections, and we focused on solutions as well as the problem. This meant a quite traditional approach to a gallery. We chose 40 plus specimens and stories to cover the exhibition, but we went about it slightly differently. So we did a call out to all our scientists and asked them to pick something from the collection, which was an indicator of change, of planetary change, but also stood for the kind of solution and hope stories that we could discuss. And just to note that some of those choices are littered throughout this, this presentation, so do have a look at some of the images in the corner. We told those personal NHM scientist voice stories because we felt that gave greater authenticity to the content. It allowed us to give a human dimension to the stories, and that was really important to us. And again, it allowed us to profile our science and our scientists. And then we did something that we thought was experimental, which was we asked a creative agency to come along and then disrupt this whole quite traditional approach to a gallery. And they did that in various ways. They did that by having a series of interventions across the whole of the gallery space, which encouraged the visitor to act and vote and discuss and talk around various points that we were, whether it was food or health or other areas. And they had many ingenious ways in which they instigated that. We haven't got all of that on this presentation, but if anyone's interested in how that was actually manifest in the gallery, please come back to us and we can tell you more. But they also did very small interventions by putting, by having a traditional display with a specimen in, but then disrupting it by putting something in there that felt very different and alien. So one example within the food section was we had a specimen within there, and then they put a burger wrapper within the actual overall case. And this, so people would come along and think, why was that there? And then that would stimulate some discussion. We had science educators within the space helping them and facilitating those discussions and stimulating debate. We then, in line with that, we then started a series of digital, on location and in gallery conversations. So a lot of these were huge. They aligned with the COP27 that was happening at that time, and they were global in nature. So we invited speakers from around the world to talk and work with us on those global events. We'll talk a bit more about that as well. Just to add as well, we had in-gallery films, again, focused on different people working in the field across the globe, and those proved incredibly popular. And all of this was driven around three main themes of food, materials, and climate. And I'll come on to some further examples in a minute. So as Beth said, we took a programmatic approach. We're really proud of this because we do that all the time, but with this intensity and around a singular vision was a little different. So we had the physical display, which I've just been talking about. We had the digital content, and then we had the events which were online and on site. And that really was a combination of our NHM scientists and our young experts globally talking together. Okay, next slide, please. So I just wanted to show you how we built that content up. So running across here is the 3 or 4 themes. So here we have the 3 themes. We called them Eating the Earth, Nature for Sale, and Climate Emergency. And then we kind of built up this sort of critical mass of content across the globe, across the digital online, across in-person events, and across the actual exhibition itself. And we began to build this critical mass, which really helped in making it feel like it was a complete program to the visitors. Now, at the beginning, we also developed an introduction around COVID. And because we were delivering this gallery in very rapid time, it allowed us to respond to topical issues and contemporary science. So obviously COVID, we delivered this in COVID times, and we really wanted to talk about COVID at the very beginning. So we did that. I think the other thing to mention here is that because we wanted to do it so rapidly, we opened up each of these themes in phases. So the gallery didn't open in one great whole moment. We opened them in phases. We did Eating the Earth first, opened that, then Nature for Sale, then opened that, and then Climate Emergency, and then opened that. That in itself was an experimental approach to delivery and brought some challenges, but it did allow us to respond to be newsworthy and respond at the right time. Thank you. Next slide. Over to Beth.
Thanks, Charlotte. So a number of years ago, when we were developing the museum's strategy, we obviously our mission is to create advocates for the planet. So we had to do a lot of thinking about how do we actually do that, and how do we help people to sort of, you know, have great experiences with us, and for our content and our events and our activities to make a difference, so that ultimately, and I think this is an area of a sort of shared interest here, we wanted to enact behaviour change. So we've done a lot of thinking about how to scaffold this across our engagement. So we know from evidence that in order for someone to become an advocate for the planet, they first need to emotionally engage with nature, to really personally value it, before they intellectually engage with the reasons to care about the environment, to understand how it's threatened, and then take action to protect it. So this is our framework. It's informed by research, and we call it the advocate engagement model, and it allows us to really think through how we optimize the connection to nature, how we inspire, inform, and empower audiences through our various different activities. So what is an advocate for the planet? So we define it as an advocate for the planet is someone who speaks up on behalf of nature and takes action to help create a future where both people and planet thrive. So this means individuals who feel sufficiently informed, confident, and motivated to make informed decisions, to get involved, and to use their influence and actions to make a positive difference to the global future. But we're very much wanting to close the gap between concern for the environment and behaviour change. Now, in order to create advocates for the planet, we've kind of got a step-by-step approach, if you like. So we know that we've got to deliver a real world-class experience online and on site, so that visitors are comfortable, have everything that they need to be able to set the right environment for engaging with the content for learning, so that they can encounter our messages. So we've got a sort of a bedrock of this framework is our visitor charter. That's our promise to our visitors, if you like, through our sort of on-site and online activities. And then we connect or reconnect each and every one of our visitors in person or digitally, emotionally, with the awe and wonder of the natural world. We provide information that helps people to place themselves within the story of our planet. And we're not just about providing information, we are about fostering that dialogue. We're really interested in what the visitors and their sort of prior experiences and opinions and perspectives, and that makes for a much richer conversation. But we also then want to empower people to make those informed decisions and positive behaviour change for the future. So I won't go into much more of the detail there, but we've got that step-by-step approach where we've got the visitor charter, then we inspire. So we're creating relevant and memorable experiences that help people connect with nature on that emotional level, to build a relationship of appreciation that opens up the possibility of developing that deeper connection. So we want, at this point, we want people to feel connected to the natural world. And that informed stage, we want to provide information, help people place themselves in the story, and value nature and be aware that it's being threatened in a way that will have a negative impact on what they value, so that they can be motivated to take action. So the outcome here is that people understand their role in nature and their impact on it. And then finally, to empower and to change behaviour. So visitors need to understand, or participants need to understand what to do and what not to do through clear calls to action. They need to understand what the type of impact the action will have, and how it will sort of perform, how to perform the action, if you like. So we really want people to be empowered to act on behalf of the natural world. Now, our target audience for the Our Broken Planet programme was, as Charlotte mentioned, 13 to 34. We wanted to talk to the passionate, the engaged, and those who are concerned, but wanted some more information and understanding. This audience for us is a slightly different cross section than our typical temporary exhibitions and galleries, which tend to be either adult or family shows, if you like. We wanted to, we want to really sort of speak to those teenagers and young adults. So that was a newer audience for us. So in order to figure out what how best to produce the content and the experiences for those audiences, we did quite a bit of audience research to inform our direction. So we did a lot of work thinking about that teen audience. So we investigated how best to engage them, and developed some key principles to integrate into the display and the broader programme. And we know from our own perceptions research that young people are looking for something different from museums. They're looking to attribute much less importance to protecting heritage, and they're more interested in museums taking a broader and more influential role in society than our older audience segments. So for this audience, agency is really important, and we want to give them agency by developing a number of personalised journeys and active experiences. We want to treat them as adults by presenting the content in a sophisticated, non-childish way. Contemporary science is really important for this audience. So teenagers are becoming, when they're teenagers, they're becoming more interested in political, social and moral issues, and tend to form the attitudes and beliefs they hold for life during their teenage years. So there's an opportunity for us to help those visitors develop that connection to the natural world, consider the implications of their actions on the environment, and empower them to take part in debates about the future, because they'll both be interested and capable of doing that. They're also, during this period of time, this sort of age bracket, if you like, more able to imagine the world in different scenarios. So we have the opportunity to take visitors on adventures to amazing places and journeys, to speak to that time, place and scale. We know that teenagers are really social, and interactions with their peers are particularly important to them. We wanted to develop emotion and respect for others. So we wanted to tell a range of different stories, helping teenagers to tap in and explore their emotions, so that they'll care more about the environment and inspire to take action. Teenagers really want to understand their place in the world as they form their identity and they think about their future, and so they're keen to explore real life and authentic learning experiences. We looked at particularly at climate change, and there's quite a bit of research out there on what this audience is particularly interested in around climate change. So these are some of the key elements of that. They are, and there's a few sort of key things in the. They really want to sort of understand more about the science behind climate change and the planetary emergency more broadly, and how they can make a difference. And so this was useful to inform our approach. And we know from our own research what this audience want from an exhibition. So these are sort of the real key elements. So it's that contemporary content. They really want to be wowed and surprised. They enjoy immersion. So it just really sort of that sort of multi-sensory experience, if you like, and the variety of experience and object display. And at that point, I'm going to hand back to Charlotte, who'll tell you more about how we turned all of this into a really great exhibition.
Thanks, Beth. And next slide, please.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, so what I want to do now is just show you some of those examples of the stories and objects that we held in the exhibition. And now I have to say I'm not a subject specialist on this, so if you have any questions about the actual specimens that are beyond what's on the slides, then drop me a line and I'll find out for you. But I just wanted to give you a flavour of the difference of specimens we used and also the stories we told. So you can see that it may be traditional display, but that experimental ambition that we talked about earlier is coming through in the way we're posing the content and the juxtaposition of different specimens. So I'll go through this quite quickly because I'm guessing we haven't got an awful lot of time and there's a lot of examples to go through. But here I'm just showing you how we have a cow skull versus the sugar cane. So completely different objects within Eating the Earth. And then sort of having these feature points where we're posing these questions. Could we save the Earth if we all went vegetarian? Is your sugar addiction poisoning the planet? So really quite action-led and very direct questions to our audience. And then we had an event to back up these discussions. So the future of food and then palm oil, which is obviously a critical issue in food development now and production. I think what we should say for the Natural History Museum, we have to position ourselves not as activists, but as informers. And that is an evidence-based approach to these discussions. So we can take this kind of active, informal approach with our content as long as it's evidence-based and we are not actively taking a political position on it, which is sometimes a really difficult line to tread. I think Beth would agree with that. And, you know, it has to be underpinned by a set of principles or a set of objectives we can keep referring back to so we don't cross to the wrong side. So that's Eating the Earth. So that's just one example. There was about 7 different approaches within each theme. So here's Eating the Earth here. So I've got more selection of different specimens and you can just see the range there. The marlin is a huge specimen and that sort of dominated the space as you got in. Okay, then the next one was about materials and we called this Nature for Sale. So we were really looking at how we use natural resources and cotton is obviously a huge discussion point there. And then we also looked at domestic animals like dogs. And it was a kind of a really interesting display of domestic dogs right next to a discussion on cotton is quite a juxtaposition. And then we, again, set some really sort of thought-provoking or just provoking questions to get our audiences thinking. And then we've got here, would you genetically modify your pet? Living sustainably when you're a renter is really difficult. And then again, we had these events, which here was about tackling illegal wildlife trade and about the fashion revolution, which again is a global issue. So that's there. And then I've just got another selection here. Sorry, the ivory is missing there, but again, a selection of the different types of specimens are for you to see. And if you can just imagine, so you have this specimen, then you have this key story about our scientists in the field. You then have a picture of the scientists and a kind of passionate quote around the scientists. And then you have this solution. So it's a really simple approach to the display, but I mean, it was very effective as you see. Okay, next one. And then the third area is climate emergency, which is quite interesting. We thought, well, is that already linked all the way through our content, but actually we felt the real need as we worked through all of the collections to really bring it out as a theme in its own right. And so we looked at fossils, fossil fuel, coal, so that quite an obvious example there, but one that NHM Science is doing a lot of work in, and then corals. And then the kinds of key questions we asked the audience was about who caused climate change and who should fix it, and then how to cope with eco-anxiety, and then again, events there. So I hope this is giving you a kind of picture and flavour of the type of content that was coming through in the space. And then I've just added some more examples of the specimens coming out. Okay, we then had a series of different types of questions that worked across all of those platforms. As we mentioned, the events, the digital, as well as online, and as well as in person. And I just thought I'd capture some of those questions, if that's helpful, to show you the types and range of that we were posing to our audiences. Okay, next slide, thank you. Back over to Beth.
Thanks, Charlotte. So we were talking about our, we did a lot of, as a program, as a holistic program, we had the display in the museum. It was one of the most challenging things with it being in COVID time. So we were still sort of restricted in terms of the numbers of people we could get through the galleries, and the situation was changing all of the time. But we had a great opportunity, whilst we might not have had as many physical visits in the early days, to really engage people online. And so we developed some really great content. We had online content in our Anthropocene hub. So that's where we pose various different questions, and we present content articles around lots of themes around the Anthropocene, and then we also developed a series of live online events through YouTube, through Instagram Live, etc. And so this is just a quick screen grab of our YouTube channel, where you can see a huge amount of events, and you can access that content. So those events have been watched and commented on a lot, and they've had a lot of engagement. There's a great opportunity for us through that live program to we speak to that ambition around creating that conversation with our visitors. So the event was conversations with panelists, including scientists, farmers, entrepreneurs, fashion designers, journalists, photographers, and activists, to discuss the key challenges that we face in building a greener future. So this was a really exciting time for us, and it also enabled us to build a broad range of relationships with various stakeholders globally, and really kind of get that conversation started. Here are some of our aims through that event program. So again, that target audience of 13 to 35, really wanting to engage them with the urgent global issues we're facing. Coming back to that advocate engagement model, we want to inspire, inform, and empower those audiences to use their voice through active discussion and participation. And again, demonstrating the role and value of our research in understanding human impacts on the planet, and a key thing for this throughout the display and throughout our events program was hope, and we're very mindful about not presenting such a dire situation that people feel powerless to do anything about. So that's a really important balance that we have to find. We want people to leave feeling that they can do something, and there is hope for a better future. And we did want to position ourselves as an organisation that really convenes diverse voices on the current Anthropocene related challenges we face, and offer a platform for storytelling, dialogue, and solution focused action. Here is just a little quick snapshot of our impact ratings on those online events. So you'll see there that we were successful. There's still the evaluation going on, actually, because the event series is rolling forward, and we're continuing to build on these all of the time, whilst the display has now closed. But those audiences were feeling that they cared more about the natural world, and understood how that human actions affect the natural world, and positive to make changes in the future. Charlotte also mentioned we had dialogue throughout the display. We had quite a lot of staff in the space as well. So our science educator team were fantastic, actually, because whilst we had the target audience of 13 to 35, the gallery itself is positioned in a really popular area, and so will reach such a broad spectrum of audiences, much younger, much older, and the science educators were really able to tailor that interaction and allow us to make it accessible to a broader range of audiences. But the impact of people being able to have those conversations on gallery rather than as well as watching a film and engaging with the content was really successful part of the exhibition. Over to Charlotte for some impact.
Thanks, Beth. And I just say I have to agree, having that facilitated gallery was a fantastic opportunity, and I hope we can do it again with the next iteration of OBP. I'm looking at Beth because it's her team, so I just hope that happens. And then you sort of getting this dialogue at every level, when you walk into the gallery, when you look at the creative agency work, when you do your online event, when you do, everything is about being able to have a dialogue, and it's not just one way. And I think that's had great impact, which leads into this slide. Just to say that OBP, Our Broken Planet, closed as an exhibition in August, just gone. So we, as we do for every exhibition, we do summative evaluation to see if we've met those aims and ambitions that we set at the very beginning of the project. And the visitor impact is based on that summative evaluation that has now come back. So I've just pulled out some key points here. We did absolutely reach that target audience of under 35-year-olds. And if you imagine that, I would say our brand, the Natural History Museum brand, isn't generally directed at that audience, and they wouldn't naturally think of that as their home. So this is really great that we got those people in. It seems that our ambition to use scientists' voices paid off. We got credibility with what we were saying. They felt that the content was more relevant to them, and it got close to them, which is really important when you're talking globally, because often people feel a bit distanced from the content if it's like that. And they also got that we were trying to be optimistic. So this emphasis on solution really helped. But I would say we were honest in our content. We didn't really shy away from some of the harder facts. And I would encourage anyone who's making a similar type of gallery to be honest in your approach. Now I won't read them all to you. So overall, the summative evaluation was really positive against ambition. We had 1 million visitors, which is fantastic for us. It was a free exhibition, but nonetheless, people had to make an active choice to go there, especially with the kind of way our museum is laid out. So we were really, really pleased that that's a really high turnover for a free exhibition space. And then we got sort of lots of informal feedback from visitors, and lots of sort of anecdotal from the people who were facilitating the exhibition. But overall, some fantastic stories that came back to us. We got lots of feedback of people writing in, making the effort to write in and say, we love this exhibition space. It really affected us. My son asked if we could have a veggie burger for supper rather than for dinner, rather than eating meat that night. We really seemed to have a genuine impact, and it felt a kind of emotional and positive response. And so I've just added a few really positive quotes we got from visitors in the galleries, which when we were doing this summative evaluation. So as a result of all of that, before I jump onto recommendation, what we can say is the museum is really pleased with the work that we've achieved here, and they've asked if they can turn that whole exhibition now into a permanent gallery, which is great news for the program. They've decided that program would become kind of institutional wide. So it's going to be one of those major programs that the institution invests in, and that will keep going. And we have already put a project team together to keep Our Broken Planet moving forward as an exhibition, and we will put some temporary displays around the museum while we're building that major permanent space. So, you know, we've come to talk to you today because we imagined that you want to do some of the things similar in your institution. So we just thought we'd draw out a few kind of key recommendations that myself and Beth have made going through this process. As I mentioned before, have an honest account on the planetary emergency. You've got to make that balance between solution and truth, and that's difficult. That's difficult because it is quite a hard-hitting, difficult time we face, but nonetheless, I think if you're looking at a slightly older audience, you can take that honest account. Being evidence-driven was really grateful, and especially in this world of fake news, etc., and the kind of culture wars really for us here is quite strong. So the fact that we are just being evidence-driven really appealed to our audiences. Again, be solutions-driven. Don't underestimate popularity of being relevant. So I have to deliver a whole range of exhibitions, and some have much more commercial feel and some are much more mission driven. What's been really interesting about Our Broken Planet is we got just as many audience members coming through as we would for something like Fantastic Beasts, which was a much more kind of brand driven piece. I think it was really important we spoke to the passionate and the engaged. Maybe they were an easy audience to talk to, but then they built other audiences as a result. We created legacy and make it personal. And you know, it's the most relevant. It's the most relevant content for all of us globally, and I think we have to remember that. I don't know, Beth, if you want to add any more to that final slide.
No, I think making this a permanent part of our offer, and yeah, we've got some really exciting things coming up. We've got some challenges as well whilst we don't have an exhibition currently, and how we retain the momentum of that. But we're this has been the biggest physical manifestation of our strategy to date. So there's much more to come, and much more to learn as we sort of engage with audiences who and we want to make a difference, and let's see how we can do that. But yeah, I hope that was interesting and useful. Happy to take questions.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry. I see Amal has raised her hand. We'll start with questions and go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Beth and Charlotte, for this very valuable presentation. I have a few questions, and questions to allow us to, make whatever, the PowerPoint, the exhibit that you guys started, to make it applicable in our museum. The first question is, you guys often said that, based on our research, we know that this age prefers this, and this age, cares about feelings and emotions, and this kind of activity attracts these age groups more. Do you guys have that anywhere in writing? Like, did you guys publish anything on, what best method to use for which age group? Because we do deal with also a lot of different age groups, and I mean, it won't be very valuable or very we won't profit them much if we're not attracting their interests. So I was just wondering if you guys can kind of emphasize more on what attracts each age group more.
You can decide on this.
Yes, that's a really interesting question, and our target audience was really quite wide, and even obviously when you look at sort of individual age brackets, we're really conscious that it's not a sort of a homologous group, but we have an audience research and insights team at the museum, so we are regularly seeking to understand what switches various different audiences on and off around our sort of ambitions around connection to nature. So they do active research with the audiences themselves. So they do that more formative evaluation, if you like, and they're also drawing upon research that's already out there, so academic research looking at those different audiences and how they respond. What I didn't talk too much about was that we're also we were developing school resources. When we had the physical display, it was at a time where schools couldn't really visit. And so we obviously look to the curriculum, the national curriculum in England and wider sort of national curricula to drive the kinds of content that would be really useful for teachers to be able to engage their students with in the classroom. We haven't published anything to date on the insight that we've gathered from Our Broken Planet, but we probably will. And I would suggest, if there is some sort of specific audience insight that we can share and have further conversation about, then happy to do that. I think I shared with Dr. Mazin some of our literature reviews that we've published on the website, and things that we do have available. But if you want some more specifics, maybe we could have a separate session.
Okay. Any other questions from the audience?
I actually have another question, if I may.
Go ahead.
So do you guys have an effective way to measure impact on the visitors or the children that come visit these exhibits? Because we are trying to, measure if they benefited from, the exhibit, from what they saw at the museum, but we're finding it difficult to kind of, have something that's very short and something that people will do, yet something that's valuable for us, something that isn't like a yes or no question. So do you guys, what's the best way did you find to kind of record if you guys had an effect on these children?
Good question. So we use a number of different methodologies across different audiences to capture that impact. We often run sort of active focus groups where we draw out key more qualitative feedback from the impact. We recruited a specific agency to help us to do the summative evaluation for Our Broken Planet. So I can share some of those methodologies if you like, but it does differ in terms of which particular audience to try and get that insight out. And of course, trying to get insight out of digital and online events and activities is really hard as well. Yeah, without doing, you've got to do surveys and things like that, but it's a lot more difficult to try and assess the impact that you're having from that kind of activity. I know that I realise that doesn't specifically answer your question, but I'd kind of need to look back at the methodology that they used to inform our.
I think there was a lot of exit survey content.
Yeah, so we did. They did exit surveys. They also did, and they did some focus groups, and individual. My team did some tracking around the gallery as well to really to try and ascertain what was sort of drawing their interest the most, and what kind of conversations that they were having. So there's sort of some proxy measures as well to see what instigated like rich conversations. Yep. Actually, I was just thinking back to the section that's about pets, which was really it was really impactful, wasn't it, Charlotte? Because that was really sort of surprising that a lot of people hadn't really thought about the impact of pets on the planet, and weren't really expecting to see some of the collections there. So that was particularly appealing to younger audiences. We also developed a called Fast Fashion, where it was a discussion with our science educators, and so they were getting some sort of rich feedback from the audiences around the challenges of trying to understand what sustainable fashion and what they should do, and what the impact of the fashion industry is on the planet, and how we can do things differently going forward. So a range of methodologies. I can look into some of the more specifics if it's helpful.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that, and it would be very helpful if you could send over any surveys, anything that we can benefit from to kind of use. And also, if you guys have, I know you guys mentioned a few kind of a few activities or things that you did within that program. If you guys also have some more examples, I know you said you're gonna go briefly through that section. If you guys have more examples of what kind of activities we can do within the exhibit, that would also be very beneficial. If you guys have published anything, or if you have anything in writing that you guys are about to publish or something, we can really benefit from anything you guys have to offer. Thank you.
Thanks, Emma.
Thank you.
Thanks. Actually, I have a follow-up on what Emma said. I was wondering if you all publish some data in education journals or anything like that, some publications related to the work, because sharing it with the scientific community. We just published a paper, just came out last month, on climate change education and the modules that we used for climate change education. And I think it's worthwhile to think about publishing in peer-reviewed journals about the experiences. That way it can be available to other people, including statistics. Like you said, you do a survey of visitors. So it'd be nice to have the data, as Omar said.
It is something, especially now, because we sort of want to make this a permanent feature. We would really like to be able to publish some of our impacts and learnings, and it will be a really interesting it's a really interesting conversation right across the sector in terms of how do you successfully instigate behavior change, and what are the key ingredients to that, especially around the planetary emergency and managing that balance between hope and eco anxiety and we're all going to be learning a lot more about that. So yeah, we would love to.
Okay.
We haven't got any immediate plans to do so, but we'll be very much thinking about that for our.
All right. My other question is, when I visited with the NHM, I mean, obviously, you have thousands and thousands of people with all sorts of backgrounds. In our case, the visitation so far has been fairly uniform, either local Palestinian people, basically, or occasionally international visitors. Mostly elder generation of international visitors. I'm wondering, in such a heterogeneous population that you face, whether when you design exhibits, you're thinking about the various people and various cultural backgrounds, or just where they come from, their background. For schools, for example, if you have from rich area schools or poor area schools, does that in any way affect your design, or are you doing designs that are kind of will fit everybody, and as you design them, you think who's benefiting from them, and the types of people and the age groups and all of this stuff?
Yeah, that's a very interesting point, and one that's very live for us. We are one of our strategic objectives is to engage and involve the widest possible audience, and we want that to go through everything that we do. So we are undertaking quite a big piece of research at the moment in terms of our those audiences that are underrepresented currently in our audience profile, and really drilling down into understanding what those barriers are and how we can make a difference right across the pre-visit experience, the on-site visit experience, and online, and also we've got through our programming, and this is where programming and that sort of more close contact programming and activities can make a difference. We're developing a sort of community engagement plan, looking to really diversify who engages with us, and doing a lot more co-production with audiences and co-curation with audiences of all different ages, and so that is a very live piece of work right now, because we do want to really be representative of the wider population. Charlotte, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we do is we say we want to hit the broadest possible audience, but then we also target audiences. And so us talking about this younger audience was a new target for us. It does absolutely affect everything that then gets delivered post that. So I can tell you that from an exhibition and content driven, how we frame that content, the tone, the choice of specimens, the everything. But it's we have audiences at our heart. I'd say there are also other factors, the strategy we want to tell, the stakeholders, and the science we have. So it is a combination of those factors as well as audience, which is the creative challenge. I would say our permanent galleries talk to that really big, broad audience that you saw when you were at NHM, and I think the exhibitions are that opportunity to target, basically.
Do you have any recommendations for us in a developing country under occupation, how we might do something that's unique, peculiar to us, that in addition to learning from your experience, if you were in our place or shoes, what interesting thing you would, and we can experiment, of course, we can try something and see how it works, and then see if we can develop it further. If it works or if it doesn't work, we don't do it.
Can I ask, what's your greatest ambition for the institution? What is it that you fundamentally want to achieve as a team?
Well, I think, our vision is sustainable human and natural communities here in Palestine, which are both the natural environment and the human communities are under threat of destruction, basically, and lack of sustainability. So our vision is that we mobilize people to act as you try also, of course, not just in the sense of education, but behavioral change in the sense of, I can be a bit more radical even and say I want a revolutionary thinking change in people. So, and I thought, for example, one of the areas I found useful is to use the cultural heritage because we're part of the Fertile Crescent and people have lived here for thousands of years in relative harmony with nature. To use this cultural heritage in a way of pride, use pride and I hate to use the word nationalism because I'm not a nationalist, but patriotism, I don't like it also because of the patriarchy kind of thing, but the love of land and the love of, we try to use these emotions to encourage people. And so I'm thinking we should build exhibits when Amal and I and other volunteers are going to sit down the next few weeks and plan some exhibits in the new area that we now have. I want things that actually, immediately capture people's emotion, but also make them, as I said, revolutionary. Sorry to use this terminology, but they have to be revolutionary. We are in a critical...
I think
yeah.
You're in a freer position than us in a way to have those conversations and have that stronger voice. I mean, this isn't an exhibit, but you have to have a hook, right? You have to get people in before you can get them in, and sometimes that's about the wow factor or something they've never seen before, but it's also about being incredibly relevant to their lives. And I think before doing this, I didn't realize how important and actually how attractive that is for people to know that they're on part of if that's a growing conversation, if you're capturing a moment in your country, then I think people come. And that's what was really interesting. And that's what I sort of meant by being really popular, even though it hasn't got, a big film attached to it, or it hasn't got a big name attached to it. It still was the most relevant piece of work we'd done that year, probably.
Yeah. I think as well, another recommendation would be to work with people. If you really want it to be sort of revolutionary and be experimental, but work with and for the audiences in the development of that. And what has made a difference for us in this is taking that program approach where everything sort of builds on each other, and we have multiple opportunities to get those messages across, but really embracing and involving the audience in the production and the development of that, and telling multiple stories from all different people, all different stakeholders, and really trying to demonstrate the value of biodiversity, what it means, how and the impact of our activity, and things that they can do to make a difference. But that sort of collective conversation, I think, is really useful.
Okay, any other questions? Go ahead, Charlie.
Sorry. No, I was just saying, sadly, my next meeting is glaring at me.
We're done.
I'm in the same one, I think.
Yeah, we went over time a little bit. Thank you very much. I do
Any other
want to make an
questions?
announcement to the other people. At next week, we may have a talk from the leader of the Global Soil Biodiversity group, and we will have a talk about soil biodiversity. So we may resume these Thursday talks, and next week might be very important since there's a global soil biodiversity network that we are going to become part of that group.
Sounds exciting.
But we'll send an announcement.
Okay.
Okay.
Can we just repeat again that if anyone wants to email us and ask us questions, then please do.
Thank you.
We'd be really happy to help
Yes,
on a practical
yes,
level.
yeah, Amal, if you wanted to get in touch via Dr. Mazin,
Yeah.
feel free, and we can share.
Thank you very much.
more
So there are
insights.
Very much appreciated.
about 18 people online. They're reduced now, but we have 5 people here. Thank you. Also in person. Thanks.
Great.
Goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Have
Yeah.
a lovely day, everybody. Have a
Thank
good
you.
day.
Thank you so much. Take care.
See you soon.
TikTok.